Guten Tag, and welcome to this new episode of the FTO podcast. As you might have noticed, today's episode is a bit different from what you are used to. For the very first time, I'm doing this freestyle, without a script. I want to share with you some thoughts I simply could not put into a script. And I also want to share an experience that, at least for me, is quite amazing. Or perhaps impressive is the better word. I have no idea what kind of impact it will have on you, but I felt I should share it. It is a little bit emotional, which is why I prefer to talk about it freely. And as you probably know, I am not a native English speaker, so I ask you to be a bit patient with me. Today we will be talking about the so-called Galactic Federation or the Galactic Federation of Light and why these entities, these non-human intelligences or NHIs, do not show up. Why don't they just land in Washington, Berlin, Beijing, or wherever and say, here we are the Nordics, the tall whites, the small grays, the tall grays, the reptilians, or the mantis beings? That question has been on my mind for quite some time. So I decided to do a remote viewing session focused on exactly this question. Why don't they show up? And this viewing turned out to be completely different from any of my past viewings. There was no dissociation, no headphones, no DMT. It was a classical remote viewing, if you will. I approached it directly with this question in mind. Why do they not show up? And the answer, I think, might disappoint some people. First, I included the Galactic Federation, or the Galactic Federation of Light, in the session as a sort of super instance that would be in charge of all NHIs, deciding whether or not they could appear publicly. And the answer was very clear. The Galactic Federation does not exist. There is no such thing as the Galactic Federation or the Galactic Federation of Light in the sense of a United Nations or a Congress or any kind of organized institution. Perhaps there is something like a religious man-made Galactic Federation, a cult or a belief system. I cannot say for sure, but there is no Galactic Federation as an actual organizational structure. That was the first clear result from the viewing. So the question remains. Why have they not shown themselves over thousands of years? They appear from time to time. They interact from time to time. There are abductions, there are mutilations. But why do they never truly identify themselves? This is the point I could not capture in a script because it is difficult to explain. Honestly, I do not fully understand it myself. But perhaps you will. Let me try to share it with you. According to the session, there are various species, these NHIs, what we might call reptilians, mantis beings, small grays, tall whites, Nordics, and they all obey one, let me put this very carefully, entity, institution, being, or consciousness. In a previous remote viewing, I described something that sounded like the concept of God. I'm referring to it here as the super-it simply because I have no other name. I have no idea what it really is, but all these NHIs seem to obey or submit to this being, creature, instance, creator, or whatever it is. Their interaction with humans, or with any species on a planet or in a system, seems to be governed by certain rules, comparable in some sense to religious commandments. And when I say they obey or submit, it is not in a religious sense, but more in a scientific sense. Although it could be interpreted as a religious cult among them. However, their submission is based on their science. Let me walk you through what I would call their 5 commandments or rules. 1. Interaction with other species is permitted in order to expand the spiritual life of another species. That means they are allowed to interact with us if it helps us develop our spiritual life, or, more precisely, our consciousness. 2. Interaction with other species is permitted in order to protect life. But whether that life is considered worth protecting is determined by this higher being or creator. It sounds crazy, I know, but I want to share what came up in the remote viewing. I cannot fully comprehend it myself, and perhaps the human brain is simply not ready for this. This protection actually showed up in the remote viewing in the context of recent years. There was apparently a real threat to Earth, an object heading towards Earth that was going to collide with it. These beings, I do not know exactly which ones, eliminated this threat. NASA apparently knew about this and aimed its sensors or cameras at it to record the event. So there should be recordings of this incident when, somewhere far out in our solar system, a threat heading toward Earth was neutralized by NHIs. I am fairly sure there is evidence of this, video, photos, or something. The results of the remote viewing were very clear on that point. There must be evidence somewhere. So there is proof of NHI interaction to protect Earth. NASA recorded it, or at least they aimed their sensors at it. It was not something that happened decades ago, not the 1940s, 60s, or 70s, but in recent years. This was so clear in the remote viewing that I am actually considering making an inquiry to NASA about it. If there is footage, maybe it is hidden on the darknet or somewhere, and if anyone out there has access to it, please share it with me. 3. Interaction with other species is permitted to expand one's own spirituality. So if the goal is to expand knowledge or consciousness, that is allowed. That could explain abductions where people were examined or interviewed. Perhaps they were searching for knowledge. 4. Interaction with other species is permitted to protect one's own existence. That means if there is a threat to them, they are allowed to interact or even defend themselves. 5. The killing of individuals of a species is permitted if it expands knowledge, serves self-defense, or guarantees survival. That is a very clear rule. The concept of self-defense exists among them as well. So these rules could explain why they do not show up, and maybe also why this might change in the future. Look at the patterns of when NHIs do show up. World War II with the Foo Fighters, conflicts, nuclear power plants, nuclear explosions. They appear when human collective consciousness is threatened, not if just an individual is in danger, but when masses of humans are threatened. And here is the point that sounds completely insane. The super-it, this creator or whatever it is, represents consciousness itself. And from this consciousness, everything around us, space, the universe, all of it, is created. That sounds utterly crazy, I know. But the idea is that consciousness feeds a greater consciousness, something like a collective memory, or a collective pool of consciousness. And the more consciousness is fed into this greater consciousness, the more powerful and creative it becomes. Creation through consciousness. It sounds insane, and I still do not fully understand it myself. But that is the conclusion of the remote viewing, or at least the impression it left me with. That is the answer to why they do not show up. There is no Galactic Federation in the sense of an organized congress or alliance. Each high-developed species submits to this higher consciousness. And maybe, as a hypothesis, humans must first reach the knowledge of this higher consciousness and submit to it before they can be accepted. Right now, it seems like we are more of a vessel to feed this consciousness. We live, we experience, and those experiences produce knowledge. As terrible as some experiences are, they still count as knowledge. We serve this greater consciousness, and they try to keep these vessels, us, alive for as long as possible in order to gain more knowledge. It sounds absolutely crazy, but that is my personal interpretation. Maybe you have another one. This is all so strange, so weird, and I still cannot fully wrap it up in words. And, speaking as a German, it is even more difficult to talk about something like this in English. So I will leave you now with these results and impressions. Please let me know in the comments if you prefer this freestyle version or the scripted version. Which one do you like more? I believe that the more often I do these freestyle recordings, the better they will become. For now, I know it is a bit rough on the ears, but I appreciate your patience. I will leave you here, and I hope to see you soon. May peace be with you, your host Ezekiel.